Joe Biden, President of the United States. Early life and background. Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr., was born on November 20, 1942, in Scranton, Pennsylvania, into a working-class Irish Catholic family. His father, Joseph Biden Sr., worked in various roles, including car salesman and furniture cleaner, and his mother, Catherine Eugenia Jean Finnegan Biden, was known for her strong moral compass and fierce protectiveness of her children. The TE family faced financial struggles during Joe's early years, leading them to move to Delaware when he was 10. There, Biden grew up in the suburbs of Wilmington and attended Archmere Academy, a Catholic preparatory school. Despite a stutter that made public speaking difficult, Biden excelled socially and athletically. He overcame his stutter through relentless practice, often reciting poetry in front of mirrors, a trait that would later define his ability to connect emotionally in speeches. He earned a bachelor's degree in history and political science from the University of Delaware in 1965 and a law degree from Syracuse University in 1968. He was drafted, but received a series of student and medical deferments during the Vietnam War, ultimately classified as unavailable for military service due to asthma. Early political career and family tragedy. After graduating from law school and passing the bar, Biden worked briefly as a public defender and later entered local politics in New Castle County, Delaware. In 1970, at the age of 27, he won a seat on the New Castle County Council, gaining attention for his progressive positions on housing and environmental issues. In 1972, at age 29, Biden ran a long-shot campaign for the U.S. Senate against popular Republican incumbent J. Caleb Boggs. His grassroots campaign, powered by friends and family, focused on change, civil rights, and ending the Vietnam War. Despite being massively outspent, Biden achieved a stunning upset victory, becoming the fifth youngest senator in U.S. history. However, just weeks after his election, tragedy struck. In December 1972, Biden's wife, Nelia, and one-year-old daughter, Naomi, were killed in a car accident while Christmas shopping. His two sons, Beau and Hunter, were seriously injured but survived. The loss devastated Biden, who considered resigning before being persuaded by Senate Majority Leader Mike Mansfield to take his seat. Biden was sworn in as senator at Beau's hospital bedside, a poignant symbol of his commitment to both family and country. He commuted daily from Delaware to Washington, D.C. by train, a routine he maintained for decades and which became a symbol of his blue-collar ethos. Senate career. 1973-2009, Joe Biden served 36 years in the U.S. Senate, becoming one of its most influential and long-serving members. His tenure was marked by a focus on foreign policy, criminal justice, and civil rights, as well as a reputation for bipartisan cooperation. Judiciary Committee. Crime, Law, and Controversy. As chair and ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Biden played a major role in shaping national crime policy and judicial appointments. Crime bills. In the 1980s and early 1990s, Biden helped craft major crime legislation, most notably the 1994 Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, which included a federal assault weapons ban, community policing funds, and increased penalties for federal crimes. Though hailed at the time, it later drew criticism for contributing to mass incarceration, particularly among communities of color, a point Biden has acknowledged and sought to reform. Drug policy. Biden supported tough-on-crime measures during the height of the war on drugs, including mandatory minimums. These policies later faced bipartisan reevaluation for their harsh impacts on marginalized communities. Judicial hearings. Biden presided over some of the most consequential and controversial Supreme Court confirmation hearings. Robert Bork, 1987. Biden led the opposition to Bork's nomination, which failed and reshaped the politics of judicial nominations. Clarence Thomas, 1991. Biden was criticized for his handling of Anita Hill's sexual harassment testimony. Though Thomas was confirmed, the hearings raised awareness of sexual harassment and remain a pivotal moment in Senate history. Foreign Relations Committee. Global Leadership. Biden also chaired the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, helping shape U.S. engagement with the world. Cold War and post-Cold War. Biden supported arms control, NATO expansion, and aid to post-Soviet democracies. He was a consistent advocate for diplomacy and internationalism. Iraq and the Gulf War. Biden voted against the 1991 Gulf War, believing diplomacy could have worked. However, he voted for the 2002 Iraq War resolution, citing Saddam Hussein's threat. He later called this a mistake and advocated for withdrawing U.S. troops and focusing on political solutions. The Balkans. Biden supported intervention to stop ethnic cleansing in Bosnia and Kosovo, often taking early and vocal stances that later shaped U.S. policy. Domestic policy and civil rights. Biden had a mixed but evolving record on civil rights. Early in his career, he opposed busing for desegregation, but later became a strong advocate for voting rights, LGBTQ rights, and protections against discrimination. Violence Against Women, Act 1994. One of Biden's proudest legislative achievements, this act provided federal resources to combat domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. It remains a cornerstone of his legacy and a signature legislative accomplishment. Personal reputation and Senate-style. Biden built a reputation as a relatable, empathetic, and gaffe-prone politician. Known for his loquacity and emotional speeches, he often connected with colleagues across the aisle. He forged friendships with Republicans like John McCain and Strom Thurmond, and was respected for his command of policy. Yet, he also had a tendency to speak off the cuff, which led to misstatements and criticism. Despite this, Biden's ability to forge coalitions and work across party lines made him a key Senate dealmaker. Attempts at the presidency. Before his successful 2020 bid, Biden ran for president twice. 88. Biden's first presidential campaign collapsed early amid accusations of plagiarism, both from a British politician and his law school years. D. Health issues, specifically a life-threatening brain aneurysm, also ended his campaign prematurely. 8. Biden ran as a seasoned foreign policy expert but failed to gain traction in a crowded field dominated by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. He dropped out after poor showings in early primaries. However, his stature rose after he was selected as Obama's running mate. Conclusion of the Senate years. By the time Biden left the Senate in 2009 to become vice president, he had served under 7 presidents, sponsored or co-sponsored thousands of bills, and built a resume as one of the most experienced politicians in America. Biden's long Senate tenure defined him as a centrist Democrat, often occupying a space between progressive and conservative factions. A pragmatist who believed in government's capacity to do good. A survivor, both politically and personally, who demonstrated resilience in the face of family tragedy, political setbacks, and public scrutiny. His decades in the Senate laid the foundation for his future presidency, both in policy expertise and in his belief that personal relationships and mutual respect are essential to governance. America is back. Doctrine. Biden's foreign policy centered on rebuilding global alliances, reasserting American leadership, and countering autocratic regimes. He repeatedly emphasized that America is back at the table, in contrast to Trump's America First approach. Key actions included rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement, renewing ties with NATO and European allies, holding a democracy. Summit to promote global democratic values. B. Afghanistan withdrawal. One of the most controversial decisions of Biden's presidency came in August 2021, when the U.S. completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan, ending a 20-year war. The Taliban swiftly regained control, leading to chaotic scenes at Kabul airport. 13 U.S. service members were killed in a suicide bombing. Over 100,000 people were evacuated in a massive airlift. Biden defended the decision as necessary, arguing the war was no longer serving American interests and that the Afghan government's collapse vindicated the need to exit. However, critics from both parties condemned the execution of the withdrawal, which damaged public trust and hurt Biden's approval ratings. Climate and environmental policy. A. Executive action and global engagement. Biden made climate change a central priority. He appointed John Kerry as climate envoy and convened world leaders to reassert U.S. leadership on climate. At the COP26 summit in Glasgow, Biden pledged that the U.S. would cut greenhouse gas emissions by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030, reach net zero emissions by 2050. Clean energy investment plans. Although full climate legislation stalled in 2021, Biden used executive power to set strict fuel economy standards, promote electric vehicle adoption, reverse Trump era, rollbacks on environmental regulations, social policy, racial equity, and justice reform. Racial justice initiatives. Biden established an equity task force across federal agencies and focused on advancing racial equity in healthcare, housing, and criminal justice. He reversed Trump-era bans on diversity training and restored protections for marginalized communities. Police reform and George Floyd Justice Act. Despite promises to pass national police reform legislation, efforts to enact the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act stalled in the Senate. Biden issued executive orders to improve federal law enforcement standards but faced criticism for limited progress on systemic reform.